Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talent Alliance Spotlight session for June. Happy Pride Month, everyone. I am very excited about today's session because I am joined by three amazing panelists who I will be introducing very shortly. But before I do that, I did just want to click into a bit of information about the Salesforce Talent Alliance program. So just to introduce myself, my name is Holly Suffield and I'm part of the Salesforce Talent Alliance team here at Salesforce. And our work is focused on how we grow and diversify the ecosystem. And we do that by firstly inspiring people to pursue careers in the Salesforce ecosystem. We also ask our partners to commit to working with us to bring on board new and diverse talent. And then finally, we provide opportunities for newly certified job seekers, particularly those from underrepresented backgrounds, to connect with employers. So I just wanted to drill down into number 2, the commitments part. So we have over 500 employers across the globe who have signed up to the Salesforce Talent Alliance program, and by doing so have committed to hiring using inclusive hiring processes, devoted 20% of the talent they hire into their Salesforce practice to be new to the ecosystem, and are providing automatic interviews for certified individuals from select Salesforce training programs. And then in return, we provide support for continued learning, we provide connections to job seekers and opportunities to celebrate and share success. So if you are not currently a Salesforce Talent Alliance member, but you're thinking, I can definitely commit to all of those things, then you can find out more information and where to sign up on our website, which I think the link is coming up in a second. There you go. All right, so without further ado, I do want to move on to introducing our amazing panelists for today's session. So we are honoring Pride Month and our wonderful LGBTQ+ community, and thrilled to be joined by three amazing people who are here to share their stories and what their organizations are doing to build a diverse and inclusive workforce. So first of all, we have Ashley Allen, who is the CEO and founder of ITequality. Ashley has quite an incredible story of how they came to be in the tech industry, and they've had a really successful career in many tech roles before starting ITequality. But at ITequality, Ashley leads initiatives to help people who are struggling in similar situations to what they faced. Ashley believes determined people will pick up themselves up when given a helping hand, a mentor, and the right guidance from compassionate people, which I love. And proceeds from ITequality will be used to start a non-profit tutoring cafe for at-risk children, which is wonderful. So welcome, Ashley. We are also joined by Stewart Monk, who is the General Manager and Vice President for FinancialForce, EMEA, a Salesforce partner. He is responsible for developing and managing strategies to accelerate and scale revenues across the region. Before joining FinancialForce, Stewart has lived and worked in the USA and Europe as part of companies like Oracle, Workday, and SAP. Stewart has also taken a lead role in diversity and inclusion, originating and acting as ambassador for LGBTQ initiatives at Oracle and supporting programs to encourage diverse talent across the technology sector. He is also part of the Salesforce Partner Diversity Council across our partner network to encourage and advise on diversity practices. So thank you for being here, Stewart, and welcome. And finally, we have Michelle Skoor, who is the Chief Workforce Officer at Bitwise Industries. Michelle leads Bitwise's efforts to train excluded people in underestimated places with the skills they need to get a job in technology. Before that, Michelle directed the Diverse Talent Program at Bitwise, partnering with tech and enterprise organizations to engage diverse, cost-efficient tech talent using unique and proven apprenticeship models. They were also the product officer for Onward and PodUp, two Bitwise initiatives launched to provide support and resources to individuals and families during the COVID-19 pandemic. Michelle was also the vice president of Lesbians Who Tech and Allies, and the community of 70,000 plus LGBTQ women, non-binary and trans individuals in and around tech. And a really fun fact about Michelle, and hopefully we're going to share the link to this, is Michelle's most recent brush with fame is having their the first queer marriage proposal story in Glamour magazine. I'm going to share the link so you can all have a little read of that, because it is an amazing story. Thank you, Ashley, Stewart, and Michelle, for all being here with us today. I wanted to start, I know I've just done a super quick introduction of you all, which does not at all scratch the surface of any of your amazing stories. So I wanted to start by asking you, each of you, just to share a little bit more about yourselves and really about the journeys that you've all been on to get to where you are today. So Ashley, maybe we could start with you, if that's okay.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me here. So a bit about myself. I started out as an at-risk kid, which I think you touched on when you mentioned the cafe that I would like to start. But as an at-risk kid, I faced a lot of unique challenges, especially around mental health, that some of my peers may or may not have experience with. And so throughout my career and throughout my education and schooling, I had to overcome certain obstacles that first I had to make peace with and recognize that they were obstacles. And then I had to learn how to adapt and still thrive, despite those obstacles. So for example, when I was in college, I was part of the Disabled Student Services because I have severe anxiety. And I had to make peace with that and learn to overcome it. And ultimately, I did graduate with a bachelor's in mathematics. But also, I was a teenage mom, and I struggled with quite a bit of different items that are common for people who have at-risk childhoods. There's a lot of resources and information on it. If you look up the ACE study, or the ACE score, ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. My life very much is in line with that. And the reason I go into so much detail talking about that is because it really shapes who I am as a CEO, as an employer. What I look for in people is I look for the motivation that they have. I look for the drive that they have. I very much understand and I'm compassionate towards people who may have had at-risk childhoods like myself. And so my background after graduating with a degree in mathematics, I then was looking for work while pregnant with my second kiddo. And I was looking for anything that I could do at home. I found an ad on Craigslist that said, writing test code from home will train the right person. And so I was on welfare at the time, and I applied for that job. And I got the job writing test code for a small Salesforce startup. And from there, I really had a journey of learning to believe in myself through mentors that believed in me. So I didn't care for test code. I have never been much of a programmer, but I really enjoyed being an admin. And so I worked at a wonderful company where the CEO really believed in me. And I started consulting for nonprofits. And then later I started consulting for for-profits. I worked in-house as an admin for a large company for a while, and then ultimately started ITequality. So that is the lengthy background on myself, but that's a little bit about me.
No, that was great, Ashley, and thank you for sharing, and also kudos on everything that you've achieved. It's quite the journey, so amazing. Stewart, what about you?
Okay, well, happy Pride, everyone. I'm going to probably take this off because it's going to give me a rash, I think. So let me give it a bit of historical context. I was born in 1963 at a time when it was a criminal offence to be gay in the United Kingdom. And it was not until 2010, with the introduction of the Equality Act here, that you could be fired or terminated and face discrimination. So you become really good at hiding during those circumstances. And my majority experience through the corporate world has been the challenge to thrive in an environment where that skews towards pervasive and very rigid views of masculine leadership. And there's lots of studies on this. Harvard Business Review's done a really good job on failed business models under the title of toxic masculinity. So ask yourself if you recognize any of these work experiences. It's around things like you never show weakness. It's a workplace that demands swaggering confidence, never admitting to doubts or mistakes. It's about strength and stamina, a workplace that prizes athletic and strong people that show off their endurance with crazy hours, always putting work first, a workplace where nothing outside that org can interfere with work, not your kiddos, Ashley, or anything, right? Taking a break. And a dog-eat-dog culture where it's ruthless competition, even internally, where defeating the losers and no one's trusted. And I'll give you a prime example of that. I lived in the US for 10 years, and for 10 years I attended sales kickoffs with the same company. And there's always space in the 2 or 3 days where they put some leadership on the stage to get you all fired up. In 10 years, I only ever saw 2 things: a sportsman or a military leader on there. Always male, right? So a talk track of absolute commitment, winning at any cost, bravery. So how did all that make me feel? It made me feel like I didn't belong. Yeah. And when you constantly look up at the stage and you never see anyone that reflects you, it has a pervasive lack on your confidence. And it takes too many of us too long to find the courage to find your own voice and the confidence to use it. So thank you for sessions like today, where we can tap into that mutual confidence around those of us that are different.
Absolutely, and you know, we've obviously still got a long way to go. You just talking about some of those points. I think we're hopefully getting better, and doing more things like this will keep us tracking in the right direction. But yeah, recognizing there's still a long way to go to change some of those attitudes and behaviours. But thank you for sharing, Stewart. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Holly. Stewart and Ashley, so appreciate your introductions and sharing more about your own journeys and stories. Always so heartwarming and also heartbreaking as we sit on Pride panels and hear each other's stories about our journey, and this specifically about journeys in our professional careers. For me, I came out later in life, so mid-20s, and similar, got a job after college. I'm a first-generation college student, come from a very large Portuguese family in the Central Valley of California, deeply embedded in the agriculture and farming community. Still the only person in my family to have access to higher education. And after taking my first job, right, one, also not understanding even from a first generation college student place, what were career pathways. And at the same time, for me, also coming out, and I think as Stewart so eloquently said, you don't see yourself in these positions, one, maybe not as you even scan a workforce or a workplace. And then surely as you look into leadership positions and folks who are running organizations, not often seeing folks, whether that's people of color, LGBTQ folks, right? What does that look like, and how do you know that you fit or that you have a path in your career journey? So for me, focused right where my heart was met most, and that was working in higher education with first generation college students and all the barriers that they face, not only once you've made the step to access higher education, but what is the work that it takes once you get there to be there and feel like you can succeed. And then transitioned into a career in technology. And also, as I was moving into other leadership positions, looking around the room, and for sure not seeing any queer leadership, Definitely not seeing any trans or non-binary leadership in technology spaces. And so now this culmination at Bitwise, while we're training folks to come into technology and who we look at, like you said in the bio, looking at intentionally overlooked communities in these underestimated cities. And for me, it's essential that we're building a workforce that's reflective of the communities that we live in, and that our technology that we're building is built by folks who are have different lived experience, and that also the representation of folks within the organization are also representative of the communities that we serve. So important for me to be out as a leader, as a queer, non-binary, trans-identified person, and making sure that folks know that there is space and there is opportunity, and that they have the opportunity to see people as they're moving into their career journey. So happy to be here.
Wonderful, and thank you for that. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. You've actually just set yourself up very nicely for the next question. I'm wondering if we could keep it on you. I've learned a bit about Bitwise Industries from having to get to know you over the last couple of weeks, and you're doing some incredible work. And you've just touched a little bit then on some of the things that you're focused on. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more about Bitwise and some of the initiatives that you're doing to support those people from marginalized communities get access to tech?
Absolutely. Yeah, so at Bitwise, we started a little over 8 years ago in the Central Valley in California, in Fresno, with the idea that each of us are telling a unique story about our journey, and our founders are their own unique stories. But how do we create momentum such that these stories become more of the norm than these outliers that are sort of the special stories that you hear about? And so Bitwise really set about doing that in 3 areas, 2 that I'll focus on. And the first is training folks for opportunities for employment in the tech sector. And I think we think about that a lot, but in the training space, oftentimes what we're doing simply is opening doors, but we're not going to reach out to the communities in which folks have not had traditionally access, or even understands, back to knowing what your career pathways might even be, right? Going out and meeting folks where they are and inviting them in to determine whether or not a career path in technology or tech adjacent roles might be for them. So a large part of what we do inside of workforce training at Bitwise is reach out and connect with those communities. Like I said, LGBTQ communities, social and justice involved, re-entry populations, veterans community. A big focus of our work in this next year will be women who have, as you know, been disproportionately left out of the workplace due to COVID in this last year. And so what more are we doing to support folks coming back into work? And that happens inside of the work we do in training. We have some pre-apprentice classes where folks can take bits of learning in 6-week increments and understand what that role might be like, and gain some foundational skills. And then for us, the biggest piece of what we do is our apprentice program. That program, and understanding communities that you're serving, that program is paid. It is full-time. We offer medical benefits for that learning journey, understanding that it is really important for us that folks step into that and feel as supported as possible, and paying them while they're learning before they begin the next step of their career, moving into those technology roles. And the learning that happens, a piece of Bitwise's business is technology consulting. And so those apprentices are paired up with senior technologists inside of tech consulting, working on real world projects, building Salesforce platforms, learning from Salesforce administrators and Salesforce developers inside of our tech consulting org, so that when they have completed their apprentice, we know that they have all the skills necessary, both those team skills, but also those technical skills that they have to ready them for their first job in technology.
Yeah, I love that apprenticeship model. It's so important. We hear time and time again from our employers that we work with, that hands-on, that work experience is the most important thing for them when they look to hire new talent. And so just providing new talent opportunity to get hands-on and get that experience is so important. So love that you're doing that. Amazing. Ashley, on a kind of similar topic, I know we've talked a bit about this, and this is a topic close to your heart with IT equality. It's obviously kind of totally ingrained in what you're doing in terms of supporting people from underrepresented groups get into tech and giving them an opportunity to work in IT and with Salesforce. But how do you hire diversely without tokenizing people? And actually, Michelle and Stewart, please feel free to chip in if you have something to say on this topic as well.
Yes, that is definitely a topic that's very, very near and dear to my heart. I really started thinking about this last year, actually, with everything happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, because all of a sudden companies were, saying, oh, we're going to hire this many Black people, we're going to hire this many Black people. And it's a larger conversation, because it's not just about going out and hiring someone who's diverse because they're diverse. You have to change your hiring practices from the start. And some of those things that really need to be changed is lowering the gatekeeping. There's a lot of gatekeeping when it comes to hiring, and a lot of that gatekeeping revolves around essentially white privilege, which might be bold, not so bold of me to say, but not everybody has the privilege and the access to a 4-year degree. And that's not a matter of somebody being smarter than another person, it's a matter of privilege. And accepting that fact, I think, is difficult for a lot of people with 4-year degrees with the privilege to accept that, no, you didn't just get through that 4-year degree. I have a 4-year degree. You didn't just get through that degree, on your own merit. Maybe you had somebody helping you. Maybe you had a good credit score. Maybe you had somebody, getting through the 4-year college is a privilege in and of itself. And it's a privilege not everybody has. And so removing that you must have a 4-year degree requirement, I think, is important for you to understand and let it sink in that that is okay. Not only with a 4-year degree, but also with interviewing skills. I myself have done really, really bad jobs interviewing because I have severe PTSD, and it's difficult for me to look somebody in the face for an entire hour-long conversation. It's nearly impossible for me to look someone in the face for an hour. 2 minutes is a challenge for me. And some people think, oh, you're not trustworthy, you're not professional, you're not, people, that whole, you must maintain eye contact. It's just very, very difficult for certain people, especially people from underprivileged and marginalized environments. Looking people in the eyes is not something that we typically do. Along the same, line of thought is, there are people who are very intelligent, very capable, but they do not speak the same way that you do. And that's a big one. People expect you to speak like a privileged, well-educated, essentially white person when you're interviewing. And if you remove that and you say to yourself, okay, well, what if this person was raised on a Native American reservation? What if they didn't have access to education? What if this person, the only adults in their life happen to have been drug addicts? What kind of speech patterns would that person have? And that doesn't mean that these people are not skilled and talented. It means they're different. And if you can accept the fact that somebody's different, then you're ready to hire someone who's different. But if you go out and you hire somebody who's different just because they're different, there's a good chance, if you haven't really let these other things sink into your heart, you're going to make them feel othered. And everybody says, we bring people in, but they don't stay. Or, you need to change yourself before you're ready to hire diversely. And that's the biggest thing that I would say in maintaining and keeping and having a thriving diverse population in your company, but also tokenizing. Do not tokenize your employees. You cannot hire somebody that is Black and then say, look, we hired a bunch of Black people, because you're making it about yourself. You're not making it about them. And that's awful. You know, if anybody that gets othered in that way is not going to feel great. So if you hire someone that has diversity, you know, on the resume or as part of who they are, really, that can be something that you do for the sake of doing good, but you can't wave it around like a big flag and say, look at me, look at how great I am because I hired these people. And they should never be expected to get up on a stage or a panel like this and then wave around their diversity, because that is exploitation. And I think that that's something that needs to be considered when you are hiring diversely. This isn't for making you look good, it's for doing good. And the later of you looking good will come through authentic actions.
Thank you so much for that. So much sound advice in there. I really hope that everyone listening was taking note. And you know, I particularly feel very passionately about the bits that you were saying about the interview process and the hiring process, and you know, your job descriptions. I really feel like everybody just needs to rip up the traditional job description and really look at what they're hiring for, because most of the roles, I'm fairly certain, in the tech industry, you do not need a 4-year degree, like you've said, and it's just something that's been stuck in these job descriptions for years. And so with that, I want to ask Stewart, actually, what are you guys doing at FinancialForce to support diversity and inclusion in the workplace?
So yeah, let me pick up on the hiring piece. The majority of recruiters within corporate environments are paid just like salespeople. They're paid commission. And the easiest way to make a buck is to hire in a manager's likeness. And I remember walking into a new team in a previous role where everyone looked the same, but it was worse. When I put everyone through Myers-Briggs, because at the time that was the kind of default personality testing we did. Everyone in a team of 14 was the same. ENTJ, extrovert, intuitive thinking, judging, but everyone was the same. And that makes up 3% of the population. So as a manager, you explicitly have to ask for different, because the way IT works is we tend to swim in the same DNA pool based on experience rather than attributes. So as an example of that, at FinancialForce, we have a graduate program focused on our engineering department. And we are headquartered in the north of England, which is a less diverse pool for us than London in South Central. And the challenge we were having was a lack of diversity at a point where we were skewed onto computer science as the degree. So the question was, well, what are the attributes you're hiring for, right? And the attributes were around analytical thinking. So it was, okay, broaden it, bring in maths, bring in other degree factors, and guess what? The diversity pool increased on there. I think you've got to have an understanding of the hiring practice of your own recruitment department, and then you've got to start shifting towards attribute hiring, because I can teach content. I do believe that I can teach content, but some of the attributes not the same. So that's one example. The other one is within the partner ecosystem, we've got a challenge in terms of not enough people, and Michelle, I'm sure you appreciate, not enough people on platform. And so it's pushing up the cost, particularly in terms of systems integration and consulting, because again, it's a limited pool. So how do you pull in? So we built a relationship with one vendor whereby we said, okay, we'll fund the training, you pay the salary at a graduate level. But as part of the condition, I want a view in terms of diversity, in terms of where you're hiring into that. So that would be two examples.
both excellent examples, and bravo you and FinancialForce for putting those in place. I could talk to you three all day. I feel like we need an hour to get through all of these topics on this panel, but unfortunately we're going to have to wrap it up. Before I do so, I did want to just actually ask each of you, and Stuart, you've probably already covered this in your last answer there, but could each of you just give me one thing that people in workplaces, managers, hiring managers, CEOs should and could be doing to better support those from diverse backgrounds, those that identify as LGBTQ plus or non-binary in the workforce? Just super quick. Ashley, you go first.
This might be a silly thing that I do, but I keep business cards on me, and when I am in line at Starbucks or I'm getting fast food, yes, I eat fast food, or I'm just, anywhere in like a customer service experience and I'm talking with somebody that is very communicative and just looks like they would be a great person to work with, I'll give them a business card and I'll just say, hey, look, we hire and we train people. If you're ever interested, please send me a message, send me an email. And that is one way that people that are managers, people that are in hiring positions can find diverse talent without, having all of the traditional items that you would have on a job requirement.
Love that idea. Yes. Michelle?
Yeah, such a good question. That could be another hour or 3 long hour conversation. I think there's a couple things up front is as an organization and as leaders, looking at inherently biased systems that are in place and asking yourself why they're there and what can be done differently about them, right? Like, are they still serving your needs and your goals? And then I think, sort of the Bitwise ethos for us is we're looking at the communities that we're in. Are we representative? Are we representative of the populations, of the voices, of the communities where we are? Because if we are doing that, then we're building products with those voices and those lived experiences at the table. And if your systems are built such that those folks don't have an opportunity or access into that, then there's something about your system that needs addressing, whether it's hiring, whether it's retention, whether it's belonging, representation, right? All of those things, taking a really good look across the org to figure out and be really honest and transparent with what's broken, and recognizing that there can be a shift. I think moving into that mindset is extremely important for folks, especially now.
Oh my goodness, yes. Hiring managers take notes. Stuart, any last thoughts on that subject to share?
So I'd pick up on Michelle's point in terms of a reflection of the community and expand it in terms of, because I live in the world of sales and marketing, in terms of reflecting your customers on their technology. Companies traditionally sold to tech departments, which skew to a certain mindset and demographic characteristics. 70% of technology decisions now are with the business, right? And I've lost business and I've won business at a point where I've shown diversity. So, for every manager in every business, just ask yourself, does my outward facing function here reflect the customers that I'm selling to? Because you will lose business if it does not on there. And it's just, not only is it the right thing to do, but you can have an impact in terms of inclusive environments. Does my team event always skew to drinking? Does my corporate sponsorship always extend to F1 motorsport or rugby here in the UK? You can, at every level, make a difference. Look at the data.
Oh my goodness, so many amazing thoughts and insights. I really hope everybody's taken note. Thank you all so much for for sharing your stories, for sharing such well thought out answers, so much advice. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and all the best. And I'm sure we will be speaking to each other soon again. I think everybody will want to see this panel happen more often. So thank you. And for everybody watching today, thank you ever so much for joining. And we will be back again next month for another Talent Alliance Spotlight session. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.